Sandeep, you've got uh, a different problem, if I can call it that. You've got the problem of having a very strong parent brand, which has a very high degree of trust. You're dealing with a brand which has been around in the market now for 20 years with Titan. Tanishq is, what, 15, 10, 15 years, something like that. Also 20 years. So you're dealing with something which is also a product which is valuable, which has got trust kind of inbuilt in it. It's a product which runs for a long time. It's not going to be bought every season. It's not disposable. You've got to have franchisees who fall into that kind of a mold of thinking and business. It has to be obviously not a short-term, quick turnaround kind of thing. It's got to be something different. So what are the elements of success in your operations that you see which we could learn from?
Yeah, good evening. I know it's a pretty challenging topic, talking about this whole topic by itself and retailing, and there are two different animals in entire business model, because it encompasses various industries and businesses, whereas retailing in itself is very complicated. So I'll stick to our business model, which is franchising retail operation, that too in lifestyle, or we call as specialty retailing. That's the core strength of the company, Titan Company Limited, in three businesses of watches, eyewear, and jewelry. It's a learning. You see, a lot of conversation happened about starting. You need a good brand and you need good processes and all that. But we are the company who created the brand through the franchising model. So just to give you background, 88, we started our first franchise store for watches in 88. That's 27 years back. And we came with the most toughest franchisee laws. We took signing fee in the first opening store we opened in Delhi. I remember we took a signing fee of 50,000 rupees from the franchisee. Like somebody mentioned in the previous panel that, you're taking my property and you're taking money from me, but we did that. Because our belief was that as a company, that we believe that to get a brand in the marketplace, and if you want to get it faster, you have to believe that the partners, you need partners to expand the footprint of the brand. And we use retailing as more as the growth engine for us, not as a franchisee model per se. It was a growth engine for us, and it still remains that in that sense of the word. That's the first part of our philosophy. Two is we believed in it from that day onward, we still believe in it now, and we invest disproportionate efforts of money and time and effort among these community of partners who are with us for the last 27 years in all our three businesses, let me say so. And the philosophy has been that they grew with us because as one of the pillars of our company's strength has been we invest our consumers. All the rest of them are partners in the process. So the people have seen over the 27 years that we've invested monies on consumers. We understood them as best as we could. We gave products which are worthy of those consumers. We gave them experiences. We gave them product quality standards. We gave them brands which they had great pride in. And probably the earliest brand owners in lifestyle category in the country, 27 years back. And that legacy has rubbed off on all the businesses we've come in, Titan, then jewelry, and now eyewear, and into multi-brand watch retailing called Helios. So 1,200 formats of retail, exclusive retail, and the principles still remain the same as we speak, that we engage with our partners over a period of time. We look at their business interests. We have an ROI review every year. We have inputs into the training. And their confidence levels are that the company will invest in consumers. I'll walk into my store. I will just follow the company's policy, philosophy. For example, they have to not touch the store at all. Their entire interiors we take care of. The uniforms is ours. The layout is ours. They have to just run the store. And therefore, one of the cornerstones of the success has been that no consumer can differentiate a franchisee store from a company store. And all our efforts in our engagement with them doesn't differentiate the channel partner. So whether I'm talking to a webcast, I talk to everybody. When we call all the RSOs across India, 5,000 people, we call them together. So there's no differentiation in this operating system of the company. And some of those principles have stayed with the organization, and the partners know that. And that's why the sustainability of the relationship has been evolved. And we believe that's still a cornerstone of our success, and we continue to grow on that model.
So with the two brands that you have in the portfolio, Titan and Tanishq, do you think there are differences in the way those businesses have got built from the operations perspective? Is there a difference in the ratios of company-owned, company-operated stores versus franchise stores in those two businesses?
No, obviously the learning curve for watches is far more easier because it's a category which is far more simpler in terms of the product category, and okay, the technicality is involved, but the consumer is not involved in the technicality of the product. But jewelry is far more entrenched category in India. And the consumer's awareness and knowledge of jewelry is far, far, far more than even we have today. But unfortunately, it's all wrong knowledge. So breaking the knowledge that they have about jewelry industry is itself a big challenge. And in 20 years of our journey in jewelry, that process has just reached certain stage of traction, but still way out of line the way consumers see jewelry buying as a process, and is ingrained into the DNA of the consumer. Whereas watches was far more simpler because the trade was far more disorganized, like it is in jewelry also, but watches are far smaller community, and Titan could do a lot more in that area. For example, today, the organized retail dominates the watch retailing, where jewelry organized retailing is still 10% of the Indian industry in 20 years' time. In 25 years, watch market has changed. The watch is no more a trade dealer mentality outlet anymore. So that change we manage in the watches, but that same in jewelry is probably, I don't think it'll happen in the next 2 generations, maybe it'll take a couple of generations more.
But do you think you need, so in terms of, let's say, the split between franchise and company-owned stores, is it the watches business more conducive to franchise?
No, actually, if you ask me, watches is far more easy to run on a franchisee model.
That's
far
what I
more
meant,
simpler.
yeah.
Jewelry also, if you look at one of the philosophies we have is in both these core businesses, all 3 businesses, we have nobody from the trade in our franchisee partners, not a single one. So with watches, we have no watch retailer in our franchisee system. Jewelry, no jeweler is a part of our retail system. In eyewear, there's no eyewear guy who's got a jeweler. So we believe that old baggage of consumer interactions we want to break. And we said we learn it our way rather than getting it, teach them wrong stuff and unlearn the learning of the past. So therefore, that also has been a great learning for us. Therefore, we are completely, new to the consumer. We are completely transparent to the consumer. So therefore, our understanding of consumer is far more clearer, and we can give them what customers want, as against giving. It was already always a push model in those days. All category watches were pushed by HMT and Allwyn, whereas it became more of pull now. So pull may have to be more consumer orientation, and because of which the trade has not been consumer pull oriented. Even today, jewelers, they're still push oriented, whereas we have learned the pull orientation from long time. And that's what's sustaining us going forward.
Great. Unnat, from a very high involvement category to something which maybe youngsters will find it very high involvement, but it's essentially what you're trying to deal with is meal occasions, making them memorable, making them high quality so that you have a certain frequency of customers coming in. And you're representing a brand which is, of course, present in multiple markets. There are different practices, different environments that brand is operated in. What are some of the learnings that you've got which are consistent across the world, and what are some of the learnings which are unique to India dealing with this environment that we are in?
Sure. So, good evening, everybody. I work with Yum Restaurants. Yum is the world's largest restaurant company with about 40,000 plus stores across 130 countries. We run 3 brands across the world: KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell. And we have the good fortune of actually having all 3 brands in India. And for me personally, I've had the good fortune of working on all 3 brands. I've worked on KFC, launched Taco Bell, and recently moved into Pizza Hut. And I think the way we look at, as we scale up our businesses, there are different priorities and different objectives and different ways of running the business at different stages of the business. So roughly we have 3 stages of a brand's evolution in a country. There is the first stage where you talk about proving out a consumer proposition, which is when you're introducing a brand in the country, and you need to work out on the consumer proposition. You don't need scale. You need a few locations. You need very high standards of excellence in terms of execution, and you need a lot of focus to prove out the consumer proposition. Once that happens, you move into the second stage of proving out the business model, which is where you really need to get to understand your back end, your supply chain, your economies of scale. You still might not have scale at that point of time, but you really need to have a template going forward that this is how my business model is going to make sense, and I have a certain payback happening at that particular point of time. Once the second stage is kind of cleared, is when you go for rapid expansion in the third stage. So we've seen if you miss out one of these stages and go into a third stage before proving out the second, you actually in a few years' time, you have to shut down your stores and come back and prove the second stage first before you move into the third stage. So this is something we picked up from our global learnings around taking the brands to new markets, establishing them. Now when it comes to franchising and really working very closely with franchise partners, I think it is the second and the third stage when the scaling up is happening. That is when processes and systems become extremely important. So we have, as you would imagine, to run a business of this scale, processes for everything, right from what is the right kind of, right criteria for site selection, what kind of store do you open in which kind of trade area, when you're launching a store, what should be, like Murli spoke about, new store launch teams. We have processes on how do you go about launching a new store with huge amount of success. How do you sustain the sales over there? And if there is a problem, how do you identify, how do you diagnose, and how do you correct the problems? So every single thing, simple things like how do you wash your hands 6 times a day? And what jingle do you sing when you're washing your hands, so that it's a complete process, to how do you cut the onions and how do you make the pizza base? Every single thing has got hard-coded. And when you're in the phase of rapid scale-up is when you need the systems to really fall in place. So for us, for Pizza Hut, we have roughly about 400 stores. Each store is enabled with an electronic learning system. So any team member, any manager, anyone who joins the Pizza Hut brand has to first understand all the standards which are available in a digital form. They have to understand, they have to get certified online. Only once they clear a certain score can they move into the next level. And for each of these levels, we have a certain incentive that falls in place so that there is motivation for people to do it. We have very strong checks and balances in place. We have an organization structure with very well-defined job responsibilities. So there is an organization that is only focusing on training requirements of the team members who are making your pizzas in the stores. There is a separate organization that is working on equipment readiness and its maintenance requirements. There is a third organization that is working on real estate and design elements. There's a fourth organization that's working on making sure the supply chain is ready to reach to the 100th city that you're taking the brand into. So it's in the third stage when you're going in for rapid expansion, is where you have to put all these processes in place. And this is where I think we have a very clear understanding between the franchisee and the franchisor on the roles and responsibilities. So on our part, as a franchisor, we run the brand. We have the responsibility of understanding the consumer needs, making sure the products are relevant for the marketplace, the pricing strategy is right, the supply chain is in place, the brand advertising is perfectly in place, we are in sync with the global positioning, etc. On the franchisees end, they're looking at putting up the teams, building a certain organization culture, expanding the organization from a real estate standpoint. And together, we make sure that the entire gamut of representing the brand to the Indian consumers, or any consumers in any market that we operate, is complete.
So, given the Indian context and the Indian environment, one question comes to mind is, do you need to put in more checks and balances? Do you need to put in more redundancies in place to make sure things happen as they're planned?
Well, there are significant challenges in each country. India has its own unique challenges. India has, so for example, we know that the food processing industry is able to give us a certain level of finished products. The last mile finishing of food has to happen in the store. Now, depending on the supply chain that you have, we have to make sure that there is no temperature abuse. So things that are taken for granted in the Western world, so for example, if you have a truck which is fully refrigerated, it is meant to run at -18 degrees Celsius. In the Western world, you would not worry about it. You know, from the factory to your store, the truck is going to come and deliver the goods at -18. In our case, we know that there is a tendency for transporters to switch off the air conditioners at night and stuff like that. So we have to have checks and balances. We have these tools that we put in every case as the trucks are moving to make sure that we monitor the temperature of goods, for example, before they reach the store. And if there is any aberration on that one, we don't accept the goods. So depending on the challenges that we have in the Indian context, we have to have systems and processes to overcome that.
Is there anything you need to do extra on the franchise side, on the franchisee's side, to create a similar kind of thing? Or are there those issues?
We operate with very high levels of trust. We have we work with corporate franchisees. So Pizza Hut, for example, runs the entire business in India, 400 stores with 3 franchise partners. KFC, 2 franchise partners. Taco Bell, we just got the first franchise partner on board. So we have a one system mindset. We have very strong levels of trust and business partnership. And we also have very strong audits in place. Those audits are, there are some weekly audits, there are some monthly, there are some quarterly audits, there are some half-yearly audits. And these audits make sure that our system, we have a good, so to say, mirror on the ground to understand and reflect back to us where are we doing well, where aren't we doing well. And I think the system overall works in a very collaborative manner. If there are things that need huge levels of investments by the franchisees to correct situation on the ground, we have a complete buy-in because of this culture that we have in the company.
Great. Kumar, you're last but not the least, and certainly I think we're privileged to have you here since you've come from Chennai, where you kind of faced all kinds of weather conditions. You've grown very rapidly. Your business has come up actually extremely rapidly. And you still say that you're a baby because you're still in only the 4 southern states, really. What have been, operationally speaking, what have been the issues or what have been the challenges that you've seen, or what are the opportunities that you see going forward from now for your brand?
Yeah, hi. Good evening, friends. My name is C.K. Kumaravel. I represent a salon brand called Naturals. We have 510 stores at this point of time, of which 502 is franchised. So we have largely used franchising as a model. What is franchising? Franchising, simply put, is using other people's time and money. That's franchising. But if you add the another word to the equation will gain power. Franchising is using other people's time and money responsibly. When you put responsibly to the equation gains power. India is a fairly, I'm sorry to say, India is a fairly lawless country, where the franchising business, especially, the laws are not very clearly defined. We are all only constable conscious people. We are not signal conscious people. When constable is there means we will stop, otherwise we will keep moving. It is in that kind of scenario. But on the other flip side of the coin, the other side is, it's a large opportunity. If you look at for this 125 crore population, young population, franchising is the route to really scale up and take to this market. When we started in Chennai, there was a rule which said that for every 3 kilometers there should be one business. And we completely rewrote this business and told them that every half kilometer, every 5,000 customer, we can have a salon. And that's how we ended up making 170 stores in Chennai only. So a lot of rules can be relooked with the current economy and current opportunity. And that's how we looked at, we have more than 440 stores in South India, where we have a baby presence in that other area. I think we are in for a very exciting times. And I firmly believe that franchising is the route. If we Indianize the franchising, we need to Indianize the franchising a bit. Indian products should get franchised. If both of the things happen, I think franchising as a concept will gain far more acceptance, because government cannot give jobs to everyone. It is the entrepreneur's role to create jobs, and every time we cannot think of an idea and then not scale up. That's what is happening here. A lot of people have got brilliant products, but at a point of time it is not systemized, it is not marketed, it is not promoted. So it is not getting scale. A lot of such Indian products are there. And if they are adopting that franchising as a route and getting into this market, we can learn a lot of things from the international brands. But I think we also have some wonderful products and wonderful techniques what we have. All it is required is mix and match, use franchising as a vehicle and scale it to the next level.
So, thank you. So how old is your company now? When did you start?
Oh, we started off in 2000. It was my wife's business.
Okay.
She said, I don't want to be a housewife anymore.
And when was that point of flux where it kind of, you decided to kick off into a much larger business?
No, I think when we are at 2000, when we reached around 50 stores, I thought this business is a lot more than what me and my wife Veena can handle. And it can take it to a much larger level. So that's around 2010, we were at 50 stores. So that's when we thought franchising we can.
So from 2000 to 2010, in 10 years, you had about 50 stores. And after that, you've expanded. In 5 years, you've expanded 10 times.
I think that is the rule of any franchising. So
what is the biggest challenge you think you've handled or you've been able to face successfully in these 5 years?
I think challenges keeps on coming. Yesterday rain is a challenge in Chennai.
That's a challenge the whole city is facing. But what is the biggest one you faced?
From a
Where
business-
you've expanded from 50 to 500 is a significant jump in 5 years, right?
No, the point is if you open one store well, the same franchisee opens the second and the third and the fourth. I think that way, we have not opened more stores in the last 5 years, as number says 450. But really, the number of franchisees are opening the next store and the next store and the next store. It is very difficult to get the first base in the what you call foundation in place. But once we have the foundation, I think scale will automatically come.
So, how many, on average, how many outlets does any franchisee run? Or let's say the multi?
I have a lady, she is a housewife. I have a lot of housewives and entrepreneur. She has 12 stores. And quite a few, more than 400 of my salons are run by women. That's one of the very important thing what we are doing, because it started off with my wife. So we have more women entrepreneurs as our franchisees. And I believe that this business is ideally suited for women. And men are not good for franchising, because men are greedy and they don't want to work in a framework. So you need to put a lot of systems and process and control.
Well said. I think you made a lot of friends in the audience today who were a woman. But Sandeep, you had made a comment earlier when we were chatting before this session about limiting the exposure to any particular franchisee. So would you care to comment on that?
Yeah, it's just a risk assessment, because large investments and you're putting lots of egg in one basket as a principle is, and plus learning. We don't believe in master franchisee as a concept. We never allowed. We had 3 limit in Tanish. I remember just recently, few associates were very vocal saying, what's wrong with you, done so much for you. So we allowed it to 4. But that even numbers are very limited. Some 3-4 people have got 4 stores. But typically it's 3 stores. Watches again 3 or 4 by default, by design. It's more to do with the, a company like ours, which managed public limited company. So there are lots of questions asked in current environments of board, and how risk appeasements are. Like I said, in jewellery, we have inventory sitting in the store, not paid for, not covered by any collateral. So the risk covers, the people ask questions, what risk cover do you have? We have nothing, we just have trust. And we have 2,000 crores of inventory sitting in various stores with no collateral. So it's kind of a self-protection, but that's all there is. Nothing beyond that in terms of a philosophy of curtailing number of... and managing them also, there's some problem happen in the family, so you can't have many stores under risk because of one franchisee. Therefore, it's just come out not by design that 3 or 4 is from beginning, it just comes as a number 3 or 4. And we said 3, 4 is a reasonable number to give. And because typically it doesn't happen in the same town. Some guys have got franchise in multiple towns. So management control becomes no issue. The quality of... So there are many aspects of management that we believe restricting them to 3, 4 in a geography close by is worth it, not beyond that.